Yaldabaoth created the material world and engendered the first Archons. They helped him keep the human soul in oblivion. Fear, desire, confusion and submission to the order of the sensible world. Each, in their own way, extended Yaldabaoth's will to make illusion a kingdom, matter a prison, and time an instrument of confinement. Yet, not all Archons remained fixed in this will to domination. Among them stands a singular, almost paradoxical figure, Sabaoth the Repentant One. Born of the same fallen order, stemming from Yaldabaoth, he eventually opposed his father's pride. Where Yaldabaoth closes himself to the light, Sabaoth recognizes it. Where the demiurge proclaims his illusory sovereignty, Sabaoth turns away from this arrogance. And where the other Archons reinforce the grip of chaos on the human soul, he becomes the sign that a rupture remains possible. This figure is capital, for it introduces into Gnostic cosmology an essential question. Does the fall irrevocably condemn every being born into ignorance? Or does a possibility of return to the light persist, even in the lower regions? Ontologically, Sabaoth belongs first to the Archontic order. He is neither an aeon of the pleroma nor a pure emanation of divine light, but a power born of the lower world and stemming from Yaldabaoth. As such, he too proceeds from the fallen universe, from that cosmic region marked by separation from the pleroma, ignorance, and domination. His being, therefore, does not originally come from divine fullness, but from a secondary, altered order, far from the source. Yet, if Sabaoth indeed belongs to the Archontic lineage, his nature does not remain entirely fixed in the blindness characterizing the powers issuing from the demiurge. Where the other Archons unbrokenly extend the ignorance of their origin, Sabaoth manifests the possibility of an inner reversal, capable of recognizing that above him exists a reality higher than that of his father. On the origin of the world, this reversal begins when he hears the voice of Pistis Sophia, praises her, then recognizes the usurpation of Yaldabaoth, his father, whom he eventually condemns. Sabaoth's ontological nature is thus paradoxical. He is not good by essence in the way that the realities of the pleroma are, but neither is he condemned to remain identical to his initial condition. In him, the Archon ceases to be a power of control to become the figure of a possible conversion. His repentance does not abolish his origin, but it modifies his orientation. He does not cease to be an Archon, but becomes an intermediary power, partially torn from chaos and touched by the light he recognized. Thus, Sabaoth embodies within Gnostic cosmology itself the proof that a being born into the fallen order can recognize the light without immediately ceasing to belong to the lower world. He remains an Archon. In this, Sabaoth is not redemption itself, but its precursor sign in the lower regions of the cosmos. Cosmologically, Sabaoth occupies a singular place in the Gnostic universe, for he does not remain confined to the function assigned to him by the Archontic order. Originally, Sabaoth belongs fully to the lower world. He is a power born in the fallen regions of the cosmos, within that very order marked by confusion, domination, and ignorance. His cosmological place shifts when he hears the voice of Pistis Sophia and begins to praise the higher reality addressing him, thus turning away from Yaldabaoth. Pistis Sophia then extends her finger and pours upon him a portion of her light. From then on, Sabaoth is invested with great authority against the forces of chaos, and internally separated from the order from which he originated. This transformation does not remain without consequence in the cosmos. Because he has received the light, the other authorities of chaos go to war against him. Thus, his reversal causes a fracture within the Archontic order itself. The lower universe, founded on ignorance of the pleroma, now splits between the powers persisting in domination and the one turning towards a higher light. Seeing this war, Pistis Sophia sends 7 archangels to snatch him from the conflict and raise him to the 7th heaven. Sabaoth then receives a place higher than the one he previously occupied. The text, the Hypostasis of the Archons, specifies that he is established under the veil between the high and the low. Sabaoth no longer fully belongs to chaos, but neither is he in divine fullness. He becomes an intermediary figure, suspended between the lower world and the higher realities. Sabaoth receives a royalty higher than that of the 12 Archons of chaos. Zoe, life, the feminine power emanating from Sophia, is then given to him to instruct him about the higher realities. From there, he establishes a kingdom, a throne, and a new order. His heaven ceases to be a mere province of chaos. It becomes a reordered space, oriented towards a justice higher than that of the demiurge. Thus, Sabaoth's cosmological position is profoundly liminal. He no longer rules as a simple archon of the fallen world, but as a power reoriented by the light. Sabaoth's relation to reality transforms from the moment he recognizes that the order of the demiurge is not the supreme reality. As long as he remains inscribed in the lineage of Yaldabaoth, the lower world can still appear as an absolute, a closed, self-sufficient order, imposing its domination as if it were self-evident. But when Sabaoth hears the voice of Pistis Sophia, he discovers that above this universe exists a higher reality, foreign to the demiurge's pride and the ignorance of the Archontic powers. From then on, the world of chaos ceases to be for him the ultimate real. It becomes a usurped, inferior order deprived of its own transcendence. It is in this that Sabaoth introduces a major rupture in the psychic dimension. His reversal consists not only of changing sides in the cosmos, it consists first of overturning an inner adherence. Where the other Archons persist in confusing their authority with truth, Sabaoth recognizes that a sovereignty can be imposing without being legitimate, that an order can dominate without being just, and that a power can reign without being founded in the light. Psychically, he thus becomes the figure of one who ceases to take illusion for reality. From a Gnostic perspective, this transformation is essential for understanding the human condition. For what Sabaoth accomplishes on a cosmic scale as its equivalent in the human soul, the possibility of no longer inwardly consenting to the authority of the material world as if it constitutes the definitive horizon of existence. His story shows that archontic control resides not only in external structures, but in a way of perceiving reality, of spontaneously believing that the visible order suffices to define truth. In this sense, Sabaoth becomes the figure of an inner disengagement, not yet accomplished gnosis, but the beginning of an awakening that refuses to identify domination with reality. However, Sabaoth is not the final liberation of the pneuma, nor the return to the pleroma. The texts place him in the seventh heaven, under the veil between the high and the low. This means his awakening remains intermediate. He perceives a truth higher than chaos, but he does not yet access divine fullness. Psychically, Sabaoth therefore represents less the completion of salvation than the first major rupture with the order of illusion. This dimension is reinforced by the presence of Zoe beside him. In On the Origin of the World, Zoe accompanies the establishment of a new order around Sabaoth. Beside him, she engenders beneficial powers linked to peace, joy, truth, love, and faith. The text thus suggests that once illusion is unmasked, the psyche does not remain empty. It can be reordered around principles opposed to those of chaos. Sabaoth, therefore, embodies not only the denunciation of demiurgic usurpation, he also manifests the possibility of an interiority reoriented towards power of life rather than towards affects of domination, jealousy, or destruction. Thus, in his relation to reality, as in his psychic significance, Sabaoth represents the possibility of an inner dissociation from the Archontic world. He does not abolish chaos, but he ceases to take it for the ultimate truth. He does not yet attain fullness, but he breaks with spontaneous adherence to the order of the demiurge. In this, Sabaoth reveals that at the very heart of the lower world, a first movement of reorientation towards the light can be born. Sabaoth's role in the rupture of archontic mental structures consists not of immediately destroying the order of the demiurge, but of revealing its non-absoluteness. As long as the archontic powers impose their domination, they seek to pass off their authority as the very truth of reality. They thus imprison the mind in a spontaneous adherence to what dominates, as if the visible order, force, hierarchy, and constraint sufficed to define the true. Yet Sabaoth precisely breaks with this logic by recognizing that a higher reality exists above Yaldabaoth. This breach is first psychic. Sabaoth shows that an archontic mental structure holds not only through violence or coercion, but through the inner consent it obtains from those it subjugates. As long as Yaldabaoth is perceived as the sole sovereign, his authority seems natural, legitimate, indisputable. But once Sabaoth recognizes this sovereignty as usurpation, he ceases to confuse power and truth. In this, he initiates a decisive movement. He withdraws from the Archontic order its primary mental force, that of passing itself off as the ultimate horizon of being. From a Gnostic perspective, this rupture has exemplary significance for the human soul. For the Archons maintain their grip not only through external cosmic structures, they also impose a way of thinking, feeling, and interpreting reality. They push the soul to believe that the established order is necessary, that domination is natural, that separation from the light is normal. Sabaoth overturns this logic not through brute force, but through an act of inner recognition. He thus becomes the figure of one who begins to mentally disobey the world's order, before even being able to fully free oneself from it. His role is therefore less that of a completed liberator than that of a principle of disidentification. Sabaoth does not yet definitively tear being away from the lower world, but he breaks the spontaneous identification of the mind with the Archontic order. He shows that it is possible to no longer recognize oneself in the powers that nonetheless engendered, shaped, or dominated us. It is in this that he fractures Archontic mental structures, not by abolishing them all at once, but by making thinkable, for the first time, the possibility of refusing them. This rupture is reinforced by the presence of Zoe beside him. In On the Origin of the World, Zoe, who accompanies Sabaoth, engenders around him 7 beneficial powers associated notably with peace, joy, truth, love, and faith. This point is capital. A mental structure only breaks durably if a new order can begin to replace it. Sabaoth, thus, does not merely contest the psychic universe of the demiurge. With Zoe, he participates in the emergence of an inner reordering founded on principles opposed to jealousy, suffering, discord, and destruction. Thus, Sabaoth's role in the rupture of Archontic mental structures is profoundly paradoxical. Himself born of the fallen order, he nevertheless becomes the proof that no mental domination is totally closed once a consciousness recognizes a light higher than itself. He does not yet embody final deliverance, but he makes possible a first inner detachment. In this, Sabaoth opens a decisive breach in the soul, that through which the authority of the demiurge ceases to appear as a fatality, and finally begins to be perceived for what it really is, a usurped sovereignty. Let us return now to the question that has animated our reflection. Does the fall irrevocably condemn every being born into ignorance? Or does a possibility of return to the light persist, even in the lower region? With Sabaoth, Gnostic thought brings a singular answer. Born of the Archontic order, stemming from Yaldabaoth and the fallen world, Sabaoth does not escape his original condition. He is neither an eon of the pleroma nor the figure of accomplished salvation. Yet, by recognizing the usurpation of the demiurge, by turning away from his pride and by receiving the light of Pistis Sophia, he reveals that within the lower world itself, a rupture remains possible. Not yet the final deliverance of the pneuma, not the immediate return to divine fullness, but the opening of a breach, an inner dissociation, the beginning of a reversal by which being ceases to take illusion for truth, domination for justice, and the order of the demiurge for supreme reality. In this, Sabaoth embodies Gnostic cosmology, the possibility that a being born into error can recognize a light higher than itself. And it is precisely here that his figure connects with the human condition. If even an Archon can turn away from the illusion that engendered him, then the human soul too can hope to break with the powers that keep it in oblivion and reorient itself towards the light.